What's up guys, in today's video I'm going to teach you and I'm going to show you how to detect supports, and we are going to draw these lines in the chart. But yeah, we are going to create a bot which is going to detect, well not detect, like it's going to draw all these supports. The thing is that first of all we need to be able to recognize how to detect these supports. First of all, you can see that the way at least I'm doing this is that, okay, I'm checking the minimums, and for example, this minimum is somewhere repeated here. So the value in which this minimum was, which was here, is repeated here. So we can say that this price is a support. And for example, here is even more clear. Like, look at the times the price comes down, and this is the minimum, here it comes down. It's not exactly here, we have to do that, like we have to give it a margin, and yeah, but it's very close. Like for example, here is also very close, and it happens again here. So we are going to do a bot that does that, and yeah, let's get to that. So we have to come to the IDE, you click here, IDE. Now we are going to click on new, expert advisor. Next, we are going to call these supports. Don't click any of these things. And now what we are going to do is we are going to make this big, and we are going to remove all this. First of all, we need to load the information from the chart, which are the candles. So for that, we are going to declare here an array called MQL rates, candles, like this. And we are going now to declare a function which is called onInit. This is not like a function, it's more like an event, and this event is executed only once when we start the bot. So we want that whenever we start the bot, we are going to do several things. First of all, we have to make this as a series, because if you don't make this array as a series, In Mql5 is going to store the information about the candles in a very strange order. So for that, we are going to use the function array as set a series. We have to put here the array, and now here we have to put true. Now that we have this, we can load all the information. How? We have to use the function copy rates. The bot is going to load the supports just once. Like, it's not going to be doing it all the time. Like, for now we are going to do that. That is just once. So we have to copy the rates. And in order to copy the rates, first of all, we need to send the symbol. But how do I know that I have to send the symbol? If you double click here and press F1, you have all the information about the function. It is very, very, very useful. So here we are going to put the symbol. Then we need the period, and this means that, hey, use the current symbol of the current chart. It means that if you put the bot here in this chart, is going to use this symbol and this period. So for example, if I now change to this period, now the bot will reload again in this chart and that period. So let's come back here to this chart, and yellow, this one, okay, whatever. But yeah, let's come back here to the bot, and yeah, we need to also put the current period. And now it says, hey, from which candle do you want to start? So for example, if we do zoom here, you can see that if we put here a 0, well, not here, if we put here a 0, this will mean that we want to start from this one, the last one. But if we put a 1, we are going to start from the previous one. And if we put a 2, we are going to start from this one, a 3, a 4, a 5, etc. But we want all of them, so we are going to put here a 2. So, well, a 0, sorry. So now we need to set the amount of candles that we want to load. How many candles do we want to take into account to draw all the support lines? So for example, we can take into account, I think 800 will be okay. So here we are going to create a macro. Let's use this, define, and let's say that the size is going to be 800. So here we can use now the size. And finally, we have to put here the MQL rates array. And look, we have this one. So we put it here. Now we are going to call the function draw supports, but this function, obviously, we are going to do it later. But what is the first step for loading these supports? Like, what is the first step for recognizing these things? We need to recognize minimums. And how are we going to recognize minimums? What is the thing that represents a minimum? So for example, let's see this minimum. Let's say that the close is here, and you can see that in order to consider this close minimum as a minimum, all the values at the left, not all, like for example, let's say that 10 closes at the left and 10 closes at the right are above. So we can consider that this one is truly the minimum. So that's how we are going to do this. That's how we are going to recognize minimums. So now, how do we express that in MQL5? In order to do that, we are going to put a function called isMin from isMinimum. But we need to check this array. And in order to check this array, like in order to check a specific candle, we need to say like, hey, which candle do we want to check? And in this case, we are going to send an integer, which is going to be the index, which will be the index of the candle. And now we want to send the value of the close. And you may be wondering, hey, this may be strange. Yes, it is. Like we could load the value inside here, but it depends on how you want to do it. Like if you want to send it here, it's okay. Like for example, what I mean is that we could also do this. Instead of here having this variable, since we have the index, what we could do is, okay, value is going to be equal to candles index close. But yeah, I prefer to have it like this. So for me, it's simpler. But okay, how are we going to do this? For example, here in this minimum, if we want to check 10 candles at the left and 10 candles at the right, actually what we are checking is just 20 candles. So we can say, okay, let's start from the beginning, and we just check if all the closes are above this value. And the same here, like we are coming from here until here. That's what we are going to do here. But we may have an issue. Let's say that we start from here. You can see that we don't have enough values. So we need to be able to say, hey, I need to start from here, not from somewhere where I don't know what it is. So I need to start from somewhere where I know what it is there. So yeah, let's do that. So how do we express that? First of all, we need to declare the I, since this I is going to be used in the for loop that we are going to do to check all that. So first of all, let's create the for loop. We are not going to put here the index, but what we are going to say is that, okay, I want I to be less than the end, because we can have a problem as well. For example, let's say that we want to check if this is a minimum. The end is closer than we think. So if we try to access a value that is later, maybe there is no value later and this results as an error. So here this end must be also checked. The beginning and the end must be checked. So this is simple. Here we have to put I++, but we have to define the beginning and the end. So how do we define the beginning? Let's say that I is going to be equal to the beginning. What we are going to do is that we are going to say that int I, the beginning, is going to be the index minus the margin that we define. So for example, here I set 10, but for example, we are going to use 20. So let's define here another macro for the margin, and here we are going to put margin. Let's put it all in capital letters. Margin equal to 20. So this is it, margin. But again, this may be a problem. What if index is 2 and we are subtracting 20? We will have a negative number, and that will be a big issue. We don't want that. So what we need to check is that if the index is bigger or equal than margin, this is okay, because the beginning, if we subtract this, it means that the smallest value is going to be 0. So that's fine. But if this is not accomplished, we have a problem, and in this case we need to put 0. So yeah, with this we won't have any kind of issues. Now we need to define the endpoint. So this is going to be very similar, and now what we need to say is okay, end is going to be the index plus the margin. But again, this can be a problem, because let's say that we have 800 values only and we are in the 798 and we want to access 20 values after that value. That's not okay, because we are going to access values that we do not have. So that's a problem and that's an error. So in that case, what we need to do is that, hey, I need to return the size -1. So when do I need to return the size -1? When index plus margin is bigger than size -1. In this case, when this happens, we are going to return size -1. So we are going to return actually 799. And here we are going to return index plus margin if there is not any kind of issue. So now that we have this, the beginning and the end, we can continue with the loop. And the loop is very simple. So here we just need to say that now, okay, if any of the candles, any of the close of the candles is below, this is no longer the minimum, so return false. So since if any of the close is less than the current value, return false. Otherwise, if it ends this loop without any kind of issue, it means that this is a minimum, so that's fine. So here we will return true. And that's it, we have finished with the minimums. But now we need to do something else, and is that, hey, there may be more minimums. Like, this is just to identify one, but as I said before, here, in order to recognize these kind of things, we need to find several minimums. So for example, here there's one, another one, another one, another one, another one, another one. We need a lot of ones. So how do we do this? We can do another function called find mins, or find minimums. So this function actually is going to go through all the candles that we have loaded, and we are going to store the minimums. So we need to do something to store the minimums, and is that we need to create an array with the value of the minimums. And how do we declare this array? Very simple. Lows. Let's call it lows, for example. Lows. So here we are going to store all the minimums that we recognize, all the, not lows, but minimums, which is a little bit different. Let's call it minimums. Minimums. I don't know if it's like that, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, how do we do now this function? Very, 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 very simple. We need to check all the candles. So for that, we are going to do a loop for int I equals 0, I less than size. That's why it's very useful to have this size here, I plus plus. And now what we are going to do is that, okay, if is minimum, like the current candle that we are going to check is minimum, for example, let's put here the index and now the value. So for example, that's what I told you before. You could put here the candle close and all that, but we are going to do it here. So we are going to put this here, candles I close. And if this is true, what we have to do is to store the minimum. So we are going to do this. So MQL5 is a little bit tricky with arrays, and yeah, when you do these things that you store information about the chart, it's very easy, because you just have to do the copy rates, copy candles or whatever, and it's very, 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 copy buffer, sorry, and it's very, 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 very easy. But once you have to store just normal values, it's a little bit tricky. So how do we do this? First of all, what I do at least is that I store the current size of the array. So for example, here what I'm going to do is to store the current size of the array size, and here I just need to send the array. Perfect. And now I need to resize this array. So we are going to use array resize, and I send the array, so minimums, and the new size, which is size +1, because I want to add a new value. Since this condition has been met, it's true, we are going to add a new minimum. So for this reason, what I do is that, okay, low size, since the value of this variable is not increasing, it's okay to put this here, because for example, let's say that we have one element. So the size is 1, we add another space, so now we have 2 spaces, and it's fine to put here a 1. But yeah, we are going to put here size, and now we are going to put candles, close. So with this, we have saved the minimum. Okay, so I think this is it for this function, but now what we have to do is that we need to basically draw the lines. And how do we do this? We are going to put here, well, we are going to create this function that I did before, so we are going to put here void draw supports. It's not going to receive anything, but yeah. First of all, what is the first thing that this function must do? It must find all the minimums, so we are going to call that find means, like this, perfect. And now we need to store the lines that we draw, because for example, let's say that here we detect this minimum, and we say, okay, we have a minimum here, we detect this minimum, okay, and we draw a line. Let's say that now we detect this minimum, which is a little bit different. Now we detect this other minimum, and yeah, and we draw a line here. Like this second line is redundant, because with this one is more than enough, so we don't want that. We want to have just one line, not two at the same place. So in order to store all the lines the draw lines in the chart, we are going to create a variable called, let's create, well, it's going to be an array, and is val lines draw, value of the lines drawn. So here we put this, and now we need to start basically drawing lines. So for this, we are going to check all the lows that we stored, all the minimums. So for that, this is not lows, this is minimums, and we are going to say for int e equals 0, I, and well, not yeah, I less than array size of the minimums. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And finally, we add this value. So now that we have this, we need to check something. Okay, how many minimums do we need in order to draw this line? Because if we just have one, we are not going to draw anything. For example, let's say that we need 2. So for example, here 1 and 2. Let's say that in order to draw a support, we are going to say that we need at least 2. But in order to take into account that, what we can do is that we can say, okay, we are going to declare a variable which is going to be something like a counter, in which is lows in, and at the beginning is going to be 0. So now what we need to do is that, okay, we are checking one minimum. Let's compare this minimum with the other minimums in the array. So for that, we need to declare inside another loop. So we are going to put this and less than this, which is basically the same, but we need to change this to n. And okay, now we have to do what I said. We need to compare this minimum to the other ones stored in this minimums array. So yeah, how do we do this? What we are going to do is that, okay, let's say that we are trying to compare the same ones, like I and N are equal. We don't want that. So in that case, what we are going to do is that if I and N are equal, continue please. Don't stop right here. So the next thing is that, okay, what if, let's say that the lows, okay, that's another important thing that I forgot. Remember the margin, like here, it's true that this one, there's like a small, I don't know how to say that, but the level is not exactly the same, but it's very close. So if it's between a margin, the minimum is between a margin, we are going to consider this minimum a low. So for this, what we are going to do is that, okay, if the low I, that, well, the minimum I that we are comparing, plus the margin points that we are going to declare now, let's make this, okay, let's put margin points, and we are going to say that, for example, how many? Let's say how many? For example, here, 5,000 under, yeah, let's put 5,500. Yeah, 5,500 points. So we put 5,500 points. So yeah, if this minimum plus the margin points is bigger than the current minimum that we are comparing, well, this is the current minimum that we are comparing, so we are going to compare a new one, and is also, so this means that, okay, is if the minimum is here and the margin is here, the other minimum is inside this range. But what if now the margin is here and is here? Is also inside this range, is between the two margins. So we are going to try to check that. So how do we do this? First of all, we need to put, okay, basically the same, we take all this, and here, instead of bigger, we are going to put less, and here minus. So yeah, I think that's it. Perfect. And if this condition is met, okay, we found another low. So what we can do is, okay, lows in plus plus. We found another one. So now that we compare all the minimums, we need to say, okay, we have, for example, this one, and let's say that this here is this another one. So we need to say, okay, are they enough minimums? Did we count enough? So is this variable big enough? Okay, how do we check this? If lows in is bigger or equal than a new macro that we are going to create, here we are going to put, let's say, required lows for support, and let's say that this is going to be equal to, see, I said before 2, but let's put here 1, and let me explain myself. Since here, let's say that I'm comparing this one with the other ones. This is 1 and this is 2, so basically I just need a new one to check. So if I find another one, that will be enough. The good thing is that if you want to change things, you can change them from here. But yeah, so here we are going to put rec lows for support, and if this condition is met, we need to check what I said before. Is this line actually drawn again? Like, is this actually already drawn? Is this margin already drawn? If it is, we are not going to draw it again. So we are going to say if, let's create a function, but we are going to put the code later. If the support is drawn, we will put later all that it needs. If it is not drawn, it means that we can do some things, and the things are draw the line. If you remember my video of drawing lines, it's something very simple. So here I need to say, okay, let's create an object. Here we are going to put the chart 0, which is the actual chart. Here we are going to put a name, which is, for example, support, and here we are going to concatenate an integer to a string, So we are going to concatenate basically as an integer. And yeah, we are basically going to use the number of lines drawn. So yeah, we are going to do that. So I want to check the size of the array of the val lines drawn. Okay, now since this is going to be an horizontal line, let's put here h line, and here this 0, this 0. And now we truly need to put the price in which we want that to be. So we are going to use this price. So we go to that candle, candles I, and here we are going to put close. Okay, that's fine. But now we need to do another thing. So for example, let's define the color. So since this is going to be a support, let's put it green. So object set integer, chart ID 0, the name is going to be the same one, and we could actually declare a string, but I'm lazy for that. We could actually declare a string, but yeah, now we want to change the color. So bg color, no, is this one, object property color, and here we are going to put green. Let's see color and let's check for the green. Yeah, green. So now let's change the width, and it's almost everything the same, but here instead of the color, what we are going to put is the width. Yeah, so let's give it a value of 4. Okay, so we are almost finished, but remember, now we have drawn a new line. So we need to say that here. We need to add a new value here in this array. So for that, we are going to do something very similar to what we did here. I think it will be fine if I copy this and I put it here. So now let's take this, let's move it, yeah. And instead of minimums, what we need to send is the val lines drawn. We need to send here that thing, this one, and that's exactly the same. So yeah, I think we are almost finished, but now we need to take this function and put it right here. So okay, what do we need to receive in this function? First of all, let's send the value, and then let's send this array. So for example, let's send the close value. Here, let's going to send this close value. So this, and the array. So here, in order to send the array, we are going to put val lines drawn. And how do we declare that we are receiving those two things? Very simple. We are going to say, okay, first the value, and then since this is an array, you have to put this and lines draw. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so now what is the next step? The next step is going to be very similar to what we have done here. We need to actually check all the lines drawn and check the values. If this value is actually between the margin of I don't know, one of those values, then we need to consider that, hey, this has been already drawn. Okay, so we take the code here, let's copy it, let's paste it, and now this is truly very simple. So let me move this back a little bit, and yeah, instead of n, let's put here an I, let's put here another I, and here array size, let's put lines draw, here another I, and yeah, so I think this would be okay. Let's put here return false, because if we go out of the loop, this means that, hey, no line has been drawn with this. And here, this else if must change a little bit, so this must be removed. And yeah, first of all, we need to check, not minimums, we need to check the lines draw with the value. Let's compare it with the value here, the value as well. And yeah, now here we are going to return true, because it means that, yeah, there's something already drawn. So here we can remove these things, not that, these things, okay. And I think we have finished, yeah. I think we have finished, like, yeah. I did this the other day, and this is very cool. Let's compile and let's check that, okay, I think that there are no errors. So now let's try and let's see if I am wrong or whatever. So let's open a new chart. Let's put here this one. Let's put here weekly. Let's come back here. Let's move this a little bit like this. And now, since we compiled, we need to check, yeah, the supports. Let's put it, and let's see what happens. Okay, so only this line has been drawn, but this one is very fun, like, it's fine. So for example, here we have that, yeah, like, these three minimums are okay. This one, there's a minimum as well. Here, this is the actual minimum. But yeah, this is very, very, very fine. But I want to check why just this line. So for example, why not here? So here, for example, we have, let's put 6,000 points. Like, what if I put here 6,000 points? Actually, we can try several things. So for example, instead of putting a margin of 20 candles at each side, we can put, let's say, 5. Maybe this helps a lot. So let's compile again. And look, this changed so fast. So we can see that we have this one, which is obviously this support, this minimum and this minimum. But for example, I don't know where does this one come from. So here, for example, there are two, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, guys, this is how you create supports. You're going to see, you have seen that, okay, this is fine, and it has been a little bit messy, but yeah, whatever. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and see you in the next one.